Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kimberly. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you are new here, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so that you can be notified whenever I post new videos. If it is your second time or you're returning back to my channel, thanks so very much for the support. I love and appreciate you. Now, as I said in my previous video, which was the get to know me tag, which I will attach so that you can go ahead and watch if you're new here, that this channel is about heart issues. Speaking about things that affects us or affects me personally that may very well affect a wide cross-section of society. Now, today I'll be speaking about how I went 12 years without seeing my mother. And I know for a fact that this is something that really does affect a lot of Jamaican children, in the sense that your parents migrated looking for the American dream, wanting to make life better for you, and it resulted in you sometimes living with family, being passed around, or just going quite a number of years without ever physically seeing them. So that's what we'll be talking about today. How my parents migrated, but it took me quite a longer time for me to see my mother than it did for my father. So if you're interested to hear about this, stay tuned. Let's jump into the story. If you see me looking down, I am just checking to make sure that I'm staying on track, because it is quite a lot. As I said, I went 12 years without seeing my mother. So there's a lot to dive into, which I will be going through or looking at over a series of videos. So this is just the general story. So, as I said, my situation is not new or uncommon to a lot of Jamaicans. We have a term for children like myself and my brother. We're normally called barrel PICKNEYs. Meaning that your parents went away, migrated. You really only communicate through barrels being sent home or over the phone. So I grew up in a two-parent household and with a younger sibling. We are the youngest. My other siblings were all adults by the time, or well in their teenage years. So I grew up every day seeing mommy and daddy and my younger brother, and we had a pretty stable family home, you could say. You know, mommy was a stay-at-home mom for most of my younger years, in the sense that, not that she didn't work, but she was a seamstress. So she was really home most of the time, while daddy was the main breadwinner, went out and worked. So that was how it was for majority of our younger years. Every now and again, mommy would go away and she'd spend 6 months and she would come back home, or daddy would go away for a month or two. But there was always a parent at home, and there was always some amount of communication, in the sense that, you know, she tried to call as much as she could while she was away. But even with her being gone for 6 months or daddy being gone for 2 months, there was still a parent in the household to provide that care that was needed then. Fast forward to when I was 9 years old. My parents had just bought a house. We were now moving and settling into our new home, into our new life, our new reality, and things became a bit rocky, in the sense that mommy was no longer working full-time as a seamstress, and her job which followed, which was her as a security guard, that wasn't feasible anymore, because that job had a lot of long nights, and we were now living much farther because we moved to St. Catherine. So it was no longer feasible for her. So of course it became time for her to do one of her usual trips to America for 6 months. I remember the morning when she was leaving. She woke us up because this was her daily ritual anytime mommy was leaving. She wakes us up early in the morning because it's normally early morning flights. My parents, they do not travel at evenings, they do not travel at nights. Early morning business them depend. So she woke us up in the morning, and I remember she came and she hugged us tight and she kissed us, and she said that she loves us and she will see us soon. Little did I know that that would be the last time that I physically saw my mother for 12 years. But while she went away, when she left, as I said, she left about 2 weeks, I think, before my 10th birthday. Daddy was still here. So once again, it was the norm for my mother to travel every year or every 2 years, to go away for half the year or a couple of months. So it was nothing, and Daddy was there. We were okay. Life was going fine. Fast forward to 6 months later, come December, we're being told now that Daddy will be leaving. No, at first we're like, okay, Daddy is just going to go up, probably collect some things from mommy and come back down. No big deal. But Daddy went. Or rather, Daddy started preparing us, saying, I'm leaving, but it won't be a short trip this time. So now we're planning, we're packing up, moving to go and live with our grandparents in the country. I had to change schools. At the time, my brother didn't have to change school because he just graduated from primary school and was attending high school, which was St. Catherine High School. Our cousin, one of our cousins that also lived at the same home where we would be living, also went to St. Catherine High School. So there was no need for his change. But I was going to a school in Kingston. To travel from Yorktown to Kingston just did not make sense at the time, especially at my young age. So I had to change schools. So not only was I now being thrust in a situation where I was going to be without both parents, which has never happened before. As I said, when one parent travels, there's always a parent there. I was now moving to go and live with relatives that, let's just say, we didn't always have an easy relationship, you know? And I was also changing schools. So in one fell swoop, my life was being turned upside down. But even with all of that, we said we just have to roll with it, because at the time, my brother and I, we really didn't understand what this meant, what was going on. I just know that things were changing for me. I was not comfortable with the change, and I was just not dealing well, which I will definitely get into more in the next video. But now we are living in the country, and for me, it was hard. Because at the time, phones weren't prevalent. It wasn't the norm to have a cell phone back in 2003. Yes, back in 2003. It wasn't the norm to have a cell phone. So I remember we only got to speak to our parents once a week, and that was on a Saturday. So every Saturday, we would basically camp out in front of the phone, waiting for mommy and daddy to call, to unload everything that's been happening and to hear any updates, to find out, mommy, you're coming home, daddy, you're coming home. And I remember it was one of those very Saturdays that my brother and I got the news that, you know, mommy and daddy will not be coming home anytime soon. Now, at 10 years old, I was like, what? But in my mind, I wasn't worried about the fact that I would be seeing my parents anytime soon. I was worried about the fact that I was now stuck in to me, what was an uncomfortable situation, because I hated the new school. It was hard for me to fit in. It was hard for me to make friends. It was hard for me to move from living in a rural area, and it was just a difficult situation for me. But when I was in my mind, you're like, okay, I won't be seeing them so long, but you're not thinking about the length of time and the fact that mommy and daddy will be gone so long. You're thinking about the uncomfortable situation that you may have to live in. But as the years went by, you started to understand the gravity of, mommy and daddy not coming home. Before, you didn't understand what it means to see your parents leave, run off then, in a sense, and knowing that they can't come back home. Because if they come back home, in their mind, that's it. So you started to see missing milestones then. Primary school graduation, no mommy or daddy. Being awarded the school of your choice through GSAT, no mommy or daddy. First day of high school, this is like a big thing. No mommy or daddy. And as the years go by, you're missing more and more milestones. Sweet 16, no mommy or daddy. Doing CXC, passing CXC, getting all 8 subjects, no mommy or daddy. Graduating from high school, going to 6th form, graduating from 6th form, no mommy. No. By this time, my father had traveled back to Jamaica by then. My father came back to Jamaica in 2008, I believe. Yeah. So it was easier for me in the sense that I was able to now see my father, which was a blessing. I think having a connection with at least one of my parents again, or being able to see, touch, feel, interact personally, one-on-one with one of my parents again. I remember in 2008, it was just so surreal for me getting to see my father again. But it was just all too soon, because I think my father was here for probably 2 weeks. Out of the 2 weeks period, we only got to see him probably 5 days. So even then, it wasn't, it wasn't anything to cheer about. Father came back in 2011. Now for that trip, that was I think that trip really cemented our relationship, because missing out on your parents and interacting with your parents like that and only speaking to them on the phone, there's often a disconnect. And I can agree that was definitely there for me and my parents. My mother and I, we could not agree on anything. We often came to blows, and we often had a lot of arguments because she was trying to be the best parent that she could. But in my mind, she could not understand my situation, and her being thousands of miles away just compounded the issue, because she wanted to lay down rules and laws that to me but the bright on face is still, but to me she did not have a right, or she was not in a position to do that because of the distance and her not understanding my position or understanding where I'm coming from or why I would want to do certain things. So we oftentimes really had a lot of disagreements. We came to a lot of blows. I just could not relate to my mother. And during that time as well, the relationship between my father and I, we started pulling apart. So when my father came back in 2011, I remember we really had a heart-to-heart. By that time, I was 18 years old. And when he came back, we sat down and we had a conversation, and he was just talking to me and he was explaining why they made the decision that they made. And I think it was this conversation that kind of helped me, because a lot of the times, you know, growing up without your parents, and I went through a lot. I was exposed to a lot. I bounced around a lot. Even if I didn't bounce around, because as I said, my parents had bought a house just before they left, there was still a lot of different persons that came through, different aunts, different cousins, different helpers that just passed through. So it was as if I grew up feeling as if my life, there was no structure, feeling as if I couldn't depend on anybody. The only constant in my life growing up was my brother, because he was there with me through it all. So I was resentful. I can admit that. I was angry. I could not understand why my parents left. And Daddy really sat down and we had a heart-to-heart, and he was speaking to me and he was saying, Kim, it was not a decision that we made lightly, but things were getting difficult. The mortgage was piling up, bills were piling up, mommy wasn't working anymore, I was on the brink of possibly losing my job, and we just had to make a decision that at the time we thought was the best decision to make. We had no idea that it would reach the point where, because as I said, I didn't see my father for 2003, for 5 years. And at that time when they made that decision, they had no idea of knowing that so much time would have passed before they would have been able to come back. So I think having that heart-to-heart with Daddy really helped to release some of the angst and some of the resentment that I had. I wouldn't say that it released everything fully. I wouldn't say that I'm fully healed. But it helped a long way for me to be able to see things from their point of view then. So that was in 2011. Now, while Daddy was able to travel back and forth from 2008, he still missed a lot of milestones for me, because, as I said, high school graduation, no mommy or daddy. Sixth form graduation, no mommy or daddy. And even during that period, I know it was very difficult for them, because while they were stuck, not able to travel back and forth, a lot of painful or a lot of tragedies happened during that time. Cousins passed away, aunts passed away. I know specifically for my father, and I think this was probably this was something that really could have possibly hurt him the most, because his father, my grandfather, passed away like a couple months before his papers finally came through. So Daddy wasn't able to come for the funeral. He wasn't able to see his father being laid to rest. And so while they were missing milestones for myself, they were missing important events, or they were losing persons then, in the sense that tragedies were happening, persons were passing, and they couldn't pay their final respects because of the situation that they were now in. My mother did not travel back to Jamaica until 2014. 12 long years later, I remember when she came back. As I said, I harbored a lot of resentment, so it was hard. It was really hard. We butted heads the entire week of her visits, because it was like, we argue over the phone all the time. We argue over video chats. But over the phone and on video chats, I can end the call and that's where it ends. Or she can end the call and that's where it ends. But my mother left when I was a child, 9 years old, almost 10. she comes back to Jamaica and I am 21 years old. So it was hard for her to relate to me, and it was certainly hard for me to relate to her, because I have lived all my life without having her physical presence here. I have matured, I've become an adult, and for me, I did all of that without her. So to have her here now and to have her question some of my decisions or question some of the things that I choose to do, for me, I was just not having it. And for her, it was hard for her to assimilate that she missed out on a lot, and the child she left is no longer the woman that is standing here anymore. But even with that, while we butted heads the entire time she was here, when it was time for her to leave, I bawled like a baby. Like complete tears running down. And you will think that this was maybe a one-off thing. Just, got 12 years without your mother, she finally come back, and now she leaving. So it was just like a hard blow. But unknown to me, or in my unconscious state, seeing her leaving again, it was as if, what if it's another 12 years? What if this is the last time I see her? Because I remember there were moments before she came back, and I was in high school and stuff. I remember I used to pray, and I used to be like, God, please don't let nothing happen to my parents. Please don't let nothing happen to my mother before I get to see her again. That was my constant prayer, because you are so conscious that life is so fragile. It's nothing, there's nothing sure, and you want some amount of closure to know that even after all this time, before disaster strikes, before mortality hits, that you're at least able to embrace the ones you love once more. So when she left that first time, I cried. And she visited Jamaica quite a lot of time in 2015. I think she visited twice in 2015, I believe, or once in 2015, and she visited about 3 times in 2016. And I remember each and every time she left, I cried. I couldn't help myself. It's like it was so hard. And I remember the hardest time for me, the time where I really broke down, was a little after I had my child. Because of course, every woman, once they have a child, they want their mommy there. So mommy was there with me, and she was there with me for an entire month, helping me just falling in mommy routine, trying her best to teach me the ropes. It was not easy. Kimberly is headstrong and stubborn. Elaine is headstrong and stubborn. And things that she used to do, I was not comfortable with doing. So as usual, we butted heads. But when it was time for her to go, I remember I couldn't even get up, because I remember I was up feeding the baby, because there was just like 1 month at the time. I was up feeding the baby, and she was packing up and she was heading down the door. And in my mind, I just didn't even want to get up to hug her to say goodbye, because it was just so hard for me. And every single time this lady visits Jamaica and leaves, I am a blubbering mess. I can't help it. In my mind, my psyche, it just programmed to say, oh, the next 12 years this, brace yourself. So it has been hard. But after going 12 years without seeing my mother, and after her traveling to and from Jamaica, and with the advent of technology, I think we have hit a smooth spot. We are in a sweet zone. We still can't agree. We still butt heads wholly. But at the same time, we have come to an understanding. And we have forged a relationship, I think, a strong relationship. And I love where we're at now, in the sense that myself, her, my brother, and my older sister, we have a nice, good routine in place where we keep abreast of each other. We have family FaceTime sessions. You know, we have happy hour on Sundays where we just meet up and we drink and we talk and we laugh and we unwind. And I think that's a good space for us to be in. But at the same time, while we are in a good space, I can't not be honest. I can't not be open about the fact that I do struggle with a lot of things as a result of going 12 years without my mother and 5 years without my father. And the things that happened or the situations we faced during those times as a result. And these are things that I battle with every day. These are things that I struggle with every day. In my Get to Know Me tag, I spoke about how the thought of not being there for my child scares me and worries me. And it is as a result of what I face. Because not having your parents there, you know, the ones who know you more than anybody else, who will know to look up for certain things, you know, a lot of things can happen. A lot of things can slip by. And it can be hard for a young child, you know. So that's just me. That's just it for me. That's my story of growing up 12 years without my mother, and how difficult it was, and how even after having her visit and physically seeing her, how every time she left it was still so hard and difficult. How much tears I cried, because even right now I am really, even with our new norm and knowing that we speak almost every day and we have family time, I am still struggling because I have not seen my mother since 2017. You know, so it's hard. And not because I'm an adult and also a mother, it doesn't get any easier being without my parents. It definitely doesn't. And even with an ongoing dialogue in place, it doesn't change the fact that having them physically here, being able to hug them, being able to kiss them, being able to physically touch them, those things matter. And that matters to me. Now, this is the end of how I went without my mother for 12 years. In the next video, I will be looking at childhood trauma and how children do get depression. And we should not discredit how a child feels or overlook what they're going through because they're a child. It was awesome being with you guys, awesome sharing with you guys again. You know, if it is that you have experienced anything like mine, if you are a barrel PICKNEY, sound off below. If you have experience where your parents left, you can let me know how you dealt with that. What was it like for you? And if it is that you just want to send some love, send some blessings, leave a comment down below. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you soon. Bye.